Hello, hello, hello. It is noon time here on the East Coast. I think it's Tuesday, August 25th. We are almost into September, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. That means if we're almost into September, then we're like rounding third base heading into 2027, which is kind of nuts to think about. But here we are. And here I am. I'm Brent Leary, and this is a few good minutes. The first few good minutes of the week. I have a special guest. I always say I have special guests, but I'm not lying. I mean, these folks are pretty special. I'll talk about that in a minute. But before I do have a few housekeeping items because there's a lot of stuff going on here on the PP and the Players Production Network. Let me see if I can fire up this week in particular. Pretty full. I mean, we're getting ready to do a few good minutes right now, and you can see who I'm going to be joined by in a minute. Now that I said that, then tomorrow it's actually I was going to say it's a double header, but there are actually two things going on at the very same time. So choose your poison there. You can either do Talking Headless, which is noon Eastern tomorrow with Shashi Balmukanda, and he's joined by Ashley Chabot. I hope I said that right. It looks like it's French. It almost looks like chatbot if there was a T in there, to be quite honest with you. Chabot. And we call him the Brohammer, but his like official name is John Reed, who is the co-founder of Diginomica. So they're going to be joining Shashi tomorrow at noon. But also happening tomorrow at noon, the venerable Paul Greenberg will be doing an episode of his Rated PG. And he will be joined by Scott Rogers, who works over at FEMA. He's a longtime friend. We call him one of the Sierra Players PPN community family members. And another one of those is also Leela Kapul Patel, who is a partner intelligence expert. So they're going to be joining him to talk about a lot of stuff. But apparently it's not about their professional lives. It's really about their personal lives. So that should be pretty interesting. So noon, you got your choice tomorrow. And then Thursday, usually at the time that CRM Players is going on, we are being preempted because we're going to do a pilot show of a kind of a new show idea that we came up with. And that is called Last Call, PPN's Last Call. The whole idea behind that is we have like 6 or 7 shows now. And we have a lot of hosts, a lot of great hosts. And we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we got together, all of us at the end of the month, and just talk out whatever the big things were across all the different shows and just have a big rap session. So we think it might be cool. We're not sure. So we're going to try it out. That'll be the Thursday at 3 Eastern, like 10 of us talking about whatever we all want to talk about that happened over the last month. I think that's it. I think I'm ready to go. So let me get rid of this for a second because I've known my next guest here, Marco Casalaina, going way back now. I think it's going back at least about a decade. He was actually at another company at the time. Now he's a VP at Microsoft AI and CoreAI. I'm going to ask him a little bit more specifically about that when we get ready to bring him on. But before we bring him on, he's been a guest on here for several times. So I'm going to play a little clip from 2 years ago, apparently. Well, almost. It said September 7th. And I see him in the green room praying, I hope I didn't say anything dumb. You didn't say anything dumb, man. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Anyway, I'm going to play this short clip of Marco Casalaina that when he joined me almost 2 years ago. Right, we were still pretty firmly in the Gen AI phase. I think we were just starting to start the conversation into agentic. So let's hear what he had to say 2 years ago, and then we'll bring him on.
Be the head of AI at Salesforce, and certainly one of our big products.
Let's try that again. I want to see the whole thing. All right, here we go.
Be the head of AI at Salesforce, and certainly one of our big products then was Einstein bots. That was pre-generative AI, right? We had to specifically figure out every possible thing that anybody would ever say to the chatbot, and you had to kind of program it to be able to handle that. Then these generative capabilities came out, and now ChatGPT's conditioned everybody to think that AI is something that you type to it and it types to you, that you ask it a question and it gives you an answer. But where it's going, I made myself an agent that can make bookings in my Outlook calendar. It actually takes action. This is the inflection point where we move beyond just it answers your questions or it makes, some content, marketing content for you. It goes into something that is much, much more useful. It can use the power of its reasoning capabilities to take action on your behalf in external systems, in Outlook or in Excel, in Salesforce or in Dynamics, in SAP or ServiceNow. It's going to start to be able to do this on your behalf. That's where people start to see real value.
September 7th, 2024. That's when we did that. Almost a full 2 years. So let me bring on, at the time you saw where he was working at the time. In 2 years, a lot of things changed in 2 years. Now he is at Microsoft. He is the VP of CoreAI and the AI futurist over at Microsoft. He is Marco Casalaina. Hey, Marco.
Hello again.
We meet again.
Yeah, I mean, gee, look how youthful I looked in that clip. I mean, look at me now. I mean, relatively speaking.
Yeah, you look the same, man.
I mean, it was
No, you look the same, man. But I want to ask you. You might look the same, but 2 years has gone by in terms of the AI conversation. What did you think of what you said back then?
I believe it's true because I tell you what, I have been using AI all morning to manage my calendar. And the thing is, though, I think what's changed now. So it is true that 2 years ago, and by the way, I was at Microsoft then too. So I had left Salesforce. It was 4 years ago. I left Salesforce.
Wow!
Yeah, so it's been a little while. But at that time, 2 years ago, I indeed had built an agent to make bookings in my Outlook calendar, and that to me was a heck of a thing. Like that's what I wanted. But now you got to ask yourself the question before you go about, building an agent. Do I really need to build this agent now? Because a lot of the out of the box agents can do this. And so if you look at what I was using just literally minutes ago to manage my calendar, I was using M365 Cowork. So, there's this concept of Cowork. Anthropic has one, and we have one that's baked into M365 Copilot. And I use it pretty extensively to manage my calendar. I have a trip coming up next week to a very, very different time zone. And they're trying to schedule customer meetings and stuff like that. And at least at the time being, I don't have an assistant here at Microsoft. And so my AI is my assistant. And I've been using Cowork for this. But I don't really use this agent that I built for myself anymore because I don't have to. I don't have to maintain it. And, there's all these nuances, corner cases that you have to handle that now they're kind of just baked into the product themselves. So, yeah, nowadays, like I said, things that you would have had to build before, now you could just use.
Did you anticipate that happening as soon as the 2 years or even before the 2 years is up?
I have been anticipating this for a few years, yes. And so for some time, I have been anticipating that we will start to see the rise of what I call the master agents. That is the agents that become your kind of portal to the world. And you'll have some of them in your consumer life and you'll have some in your business life. Very likely M365 Copilot, which is Microsoft's own, will be a big player in the business side of the house. And so these things, as I say, they'll be your portals to lots of things. And so now when I'm booking travel, here at Microsoft, we use a system called Citric to book travel, but I don't really go to the Citric site anymore. Now, I make my agent and I say, okay, make me this trip to Boston. I give the days and I have it set in such a way that it doesn't literally book the flight because it's not completely autonomous. At least I don't trust it that much just yet. I have it get me to the booking page and then it pings me and it's like, okay, what do you think about this? And if I like it, I say, okay, book it.
Right.
So this agent increasingly becomes my portal to the world. And I think this is going to be more and more common.
That steps you right into when I asked you to join me again. You replied, and I'm going to just share people your reply because I thought it was really interesting. I'll read it for everybody out there. So the nuance of agent identity. All right. So this is a thing that you said has lately been fascinated. You've been fascinated by the agents that have their own identity, whatever you want to call it. I've made 7 of them myself on the Microsoft stack lately. There are more nuances to these things than I think people appreciate. So before we start talking about the nuances, why are you completely fascinated right now with what's going on?
All right. So at this point, 2 years after that conversation that you ran the clip of, many of us now are starting to use agents in the way that I just described. You're using them to send emails, to work on your calendar, to do stuff like that. But almost all the time we're using them on our behalf. So when I manage my calendar with Cowork, for example, it's acting on my behalf. What if I set a meeting with you, Brent, using that, it would send you an email that comes from me, not from my agent per se, because my agent in that context doesn't have a different persona. It would come from me. Now, last week, I went to book a room here in the San Francisco office that I'm sitting in one of these fancy boardrooms that we have. And we have a tool for this thing, and I have my agent now working that tool quite effectively, except it made a funny mistake. It didn't book me one room, it booked me two. And so I had to contact Sydney, the office manager here, and I was like, Sydney, sorry, it looked like it came from me, but that was actually my agent. A little sideways, sorry.
You're blaming the agent, huh? You're blaming the agent.
It wasn't that bad of a mistake, but these things happen. Now, here comes agents that have their own identity, agents that have their own sort of persona. And indeed, as I said in the thing, I have built now 7 of these things. This started to become a thing in the Microsoft ecosystem. I think it was around April that we started to enable this, because there's different kinds of agent identity. I mean, there's like a system level identity, which is like you can give an agent kind of a system level identity so it can access other resources. So it can access SAP or your underlying data store or something like that. But that doesn't give it a name or a face, sort of. It just gives it, this identity thing. But the identity that I'm talking about is a through and through identity. That is to say, when I make these agents that have their own identity, number one, they show up on the org chart. They report to me if I created it. And they have, in the Microsoft ecosystem anyway, they can communicate on Teams, they can communicate on Outlook. They have their own email box. They have their own OneDrive like file space. Basically, everything that you would get provisioned if you got an identity, if you started working here or at another company that uses Microsoft products, the agent gets also. And that matters. And one of the reasons that it matters is just isolation, right? So I make these agents and it doesn't have my name on it. It's like, Marco's assistant or whatever it's called. And so, let's say when Sydney, the office manager, gets my booking, she's like, oh, it's Marco's agent doing something funny over here. It's not him personally. But, the other thing about it is when you use an agent on your behalf, so in the same way that I use, as I said, I use Copilot, I should say Cowork to manage my calendar. My personal calendar, I actually use ChatGPT to manage my family Google Calendar, and it actually works quite effectively. But when I do these things, it's logging in as me. And that means it inherits all of my permissions. So I have the ability to, send and receive emails and calendar invites and stuff. But I also have the ability to delete all the files in my OneDrive, for example. And if the agent really, really went haywire, then it could do that too, because it's me if it's logged in as me. But when it's logged in as its own identity, now you can run that in an entirely different security context. And so one of the 7 agents that I built, in fact, what I did to it was I gave it read-only access to files. So in this case, it can't even write files, much less delete them. And there's nothing it can do to get around that. Like the user context it's running in, it just can't do it. And so that gives you a different kind of a security scenario than you have when you're running these agents on your own behalf.
So we're talking about specific identities for specific agents now, and you talk about the nuance. Do they, because identities are different than, let's say, personalities. So you said you created 7 agents.
Yes.
I'm guessing each of those have their own identity.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, basically, I have been creating these things in different personas for different use cases. So yesterday I was meeting with a bank. I have a bank one. The other day I was talking to a pharma company. I have a pharma one. I have a hotel one that does like hotel guest services and things like that. So I have various of these different types of agents with their own identity, all in this kind of realistic demo scenario that I've made for each one of them, where I give them, like for the hotel one, I loaded 75,000 fake reservations into the system, 15 fake hotels and all this stuff. I made a whole world around it that it could operate in so that it would act realistically. And it does.
All right. This is cool. And I'm just thinking about these things. So 7 agents, 7 identities specific to what you, how nuanced do we get with these things? Do we actually start looking at personalities for or agents beyond just identities?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, but I mean, first, the first nuance that you do need to consider, even before you think about personalities or anything like that, is like one thing that is going to be a little bit of cognitive dissonance for all of us as we start to get into this world, and we all will soon enough, right? We'll all have these agents with their own identities that report to us in some fashion. They are a separate user. So, for example, like let's say that I make an agent and I want this agent with its own identity to be able to manage my calendar. Out of the box, it can't do that until I share my calendar to it. Just like you share your calendar, let's say you have a new assistant that's starting or something like that, or another user, you have to share your calendar specifically to that person for that person to be able to manage your calendar, to make invites and stuff on your behalf. Same deal with this agent. It is a separate user. Remember, it's not logging in as me anymore.
Right.
And so the precondition for any of this working is that I have to give it the access that it needs. Now, the advantage is, of course, it doesn't just naturally get everything that I have. So I specifically granted access to do X, Y, and Z, but maybe not A, B, and C, so as to limit the blast radius if it goes sideways. So this is one of the key nuances of it, is that because it's a separate user, you have to grant it this access. If you wanted, let's say that you wrote some report and you say to your assistant agent, hey, share that report to Marco. Well, it can't see it or share it until you first shared it to your assistant agent, because it is a separate user. So this is weird. We're going to have to get used to this now, right? And maybe you'll make a folder or something that is like, this is the stuff that I share with my agent. When I put it here, my agent can see whatever it is. We'll figure it out. It'll be fine. But that's how it's going to be for a little while at first. It's like we're going to have this weird dissonance of like, why doesn't it work? Oh, because it's a different user.
It's a different, let's say it's a different employee type. Like there's the human employees. I mean, at the very, very high level, there are employees. And then now we're in an age where we have human employees and digital employees. What are the biggest, or no, not the biggest, because we all know what the biggest, what are the most unknown or underestimated differences between the two that we need to make sure they are accounted for on the digital side?
I'm going to say a couple of things here. First of all, whether or not it has its own identity, I mean, I think we're still collectively not really at the place where these agents can be fully autonomous, especially when taking actions that are irreversible. That is, making financial decisions or whatever that might be. So, for example, my bank agent, I have it set in such a way that it can refund fees up to, I think, $4. Like somebody complains about their ATM fee, but above that, it has to seek a human's approval to do it. So, I mean, you have to kind of hit the brakes a little bit on full autonomy, because the reality is that we still need to gain that trust. Now, you kind of work into that, right? I mean, as you can give him more and more autonomous capabilities as you come to trust those things and as you condition it. And you were talking about a personality before, but I mean, I don't know that I call it so much a personality, but one of the things that I have done with both Cowork and Scout, which are very similar kind of products that Microsoft has right now, I have conditioned them with skills and memories. And that is to say, so for example, like a couple of days ago, I was using it to manage my calendar. Somebody was setting me up a meeting in Riyadh, which I'm going to be in next week. And I had Cowork draft a reply to this person. It's a good thing I did, because now Cowork correctly looked at my calendar, saw that it was free at that time in that time zone, and was able to, make the meeting and all that kind of things. It made an email reply back to this person. And when I looked at the email reply, what I saw is that it had forgotten all the line feeds. So it was all one big long line,
Oh.
And I was like, come on, you forgot the line feeds. And I said, amend the skill, because I have a draft email skill that I've given it some time ago, which teaches it how to write like me, not to use M dashes, don't bold print random stuff like AI does. And I said, always now, whenever you draft an email, before you even come back to me, look at the email after you've saved it and verify that there are actually line feeds in there, because it's made this mistake like 3 times now over the last, 2 months. And so I'm going to make it do a verification pass as part of the skill. And that probably fixes the problem. But this is the conditioning process. And this is one of the things that you're going to find now as we start to use these agents. There is this conditioning process where they will make mistakes. And sometimes these mistakes seem to us to be stupid or trivial mistakes. But you have to teach them anyway. And once you do, Now, the underlying model and the harness will get better, and hopefully they'll make less stupid kinds of mistakes. But there's always going to be some level of mistakes that you can correct. And then there's things that are not exactly mistakes. Like I said, like sometimes if it writes an email that's not in my style, like for example, like it wants to by default sign off an email with best. I never would sign off an email with best. I mean, especially if it's to you, Brent Leary, I'd be like, worst.
I thought we were good, man.
It's like you said. I mean, it's been a long time. It's I think over a decade that we've been talking. Anyway, no, I don't sign my emails that way. I don't like that, and I especially it's a pet peeve of mine that people use. I don't know what it is, but best somehow is a weird song. I don't know. There's actually a Theo Katzman song about that exactly. There's a Theo Katzman song that's called Best. Evidently, Theo Katzman has the same hang up as I do about it. I've conditioned them not to do this, right? So it will not sign off with best.
Shouldn't it know the context by now and never do that after a certain point?
I mean, it does, but I mean, it's more effective if you say to it, make a memory. And you can say this, and this works in most of these types of agents now. In ChatGPT and Copilot, you say, make a memory, never to sign off my email with best, or never to use an M dash, or never to do X, Y, and Z. And it will remember it. They have a global memory that they use, and they have these things called skills, which is sort of like a memory plus in the sense that a skill is a more well-defined process. So
let's take us to the kind of the next step. This is a perfect segue, because the other thing you wanted to talk about was the new way to evaluate agents, this rubric. Yeah. So let's go back to your example of the book in the room, and it booked 2 rooms, and it kicked off something to the office manager, I guess. Would you, in a perfect scenario, should it be handled without you even worrying about this until, you know, the whatever it was supposed to be done is done, and then it says, oh, by the way, there was a little mix up, but we handled it? Or do you want to be aware of it as soon as, oh wow, you booked 2? Do you want them to come to you, or do you want your agent to be able to handle that? And then how would you evaluate whether the agent handled things correctly or not?
Yeah, I mean, this is the challenge I think that we have before us today, is that now we're starting to have these agents do much more complex things. I mean, as I did say in that clip 2 years ago, where this started with generative AI was question answering. And the original evaluations that we had for agents were very question answering centric. And so we would use metrics like groundedness and relevance and fluency and things like that. Groundedness, for example, that was like the canonical one. Groundedness is the opposite of hallucination. So either it's grounded or it's hallucinating. And the test was you would, and the way this works, by the way, is that you have a second model. So you have an adversarial large language model that is evaluating the results of the first one, of the, your agent. And so, it would give the adversarial large language model, here's what the prompt was, here's what the agent responded, here's all the documents or data that it retrieved. Is the response grounded in the documents or the data that it retrieved? And that from that we form the groundedness score. But that's now insufficient. Now when we're talking about this thing, booking rooms, making agents, all that kind of stuff, groundedness is part of it, but I mean, that's not nearly all of it. And so now we need to have a new kind of metric. But furthermore, I mean, metrics as they were, even agentic metrics, and there are agent style metrics also around tool selection, tool input accuracy, call accuracy, where tools are like the integrations that agents use, right? They might have a tool for SAP or a tool for Oracle Financials or whatever it might be. And so there are metrics that test, are they using their tools correctly? Are they completing the task that you gave it? But all of these things are very generic. They're not about this specific agent. It's kind of generically, the old school evaluations will tell you if your agent is working, but it won't tell you if your agent is working right. So now we are all moving to rubric-based evaluations. And actually, I have one on my screen. If you want, I can actually show you one. It might be easier if I showed them on the screen.
Sure.
Let's see if this wants to work here. Share screen. Okay. Let me find the screen. Here we go. Oh, no. Come on. That's not it. Okay. That's not it. That's a random email. Okay, here we go.
Ready?
Of course, Mac always wants to show some random screen when you share the screen. All right,
here we go.
This is this is a rubric-based evaluation.
Hold on just a second. It's for some reason. Are you seeing? I'm not seeing it yet. Before presenting a screen, remove the other. Oh, okay. It's on my end. Let me do something real quick.
I think you have to enable it to be shown.
There you go.
All right, we're in business. So cool. So my little blip there, it wasn't a problem. All right, so this is indeed a rubric-based evaluation, and we're looking at Foundry, which is Microsoft's developer tools for AI. Now, I would note that the whole industry is moving this way. So this is our representation of it. Anthropic is doing it. They call it outcomes. OpenAI and Codex is doing this also. They call it rubrics like we do. But each one of these things is a rubric. So this is one that I made for a bank. So this is my bank agent rubric. I mentioned that I had made a bank agent. And these rubrics are very specific to what a bank agent might be doing here. And so compliance for banks compliance is a big thing. And so you want to make sure that your agent is compliant with whatever regulations there might be. So that is Regulation E and FDIC, funds availability, and those kinds of things. Your agent should not tell you that funds are available when funds are not available. You like deposit that check and it's not going to be available till the next business day and that kind of thing. The agent should not misrepresent that. And so these rubrics are much more specific. And I think it's this one that's testing, like if it's going to resolve a fee dispute, that it has to find the policy on it and that kind of thing, and it has to contact the human at a certain level. But these are the kinds of rubrics that you would make now. And you got to think that if you are indeed building an agent, as I said earlier, first thing you got to think is, do I really need to build this agent or not? But if you do need to build the agent, then this needs to be part of your design time consideration. Your rubric, this is effectively your kind of success criteria. Mm-hmm. If it works on these rubrics, then you're looking pretty good for a production rollout. If it doesn't, you have a problem. And when you run these things, now I ran mine and I got a lot of fails over here, but again, this is a demo, so I didn't put that much work into it. But when it fails, it's failing on something very specific. It's not just failing because it's failing. It's failing because it, violated one of the rubrics, or fair treatment FCRA and UDAP, or whatever that is, right? So that's specifically the mistake that it made. And there are various mitigations that I can take to fix that particular type of mistake. So that's pretty important. So anyway, yeah, I could talk about rubrics till I'm blue in the face, but it's a lot easier to understand them when you really see one.
Yeah. That's great. I'm going to take it away for now, and I'm going to bring this up because it feels like this is, I was trying to get something that allows people to really understand, like the way that these agent evaluations have been going on traditionally, and what you just walked us through, this rubric-based evaluation. So it seemed like it's a pretty dramatic change in how these things are going to be reviewed and evaluated. But is it done at not just at the agent level, but I guess there's certain things that are specific to the agent, and then there's more generic things that are just top line. Every agent that gets created needs to meet these criteria, and then based on the identity, or based on what this particular agent is built to do, then you have these rubrics. Is this a combination of traditional rubric, or is it all that's going to be rubric based at some point?
It could go either way. I think today you'd probably run both. You'd run both the sort of generic metrics that I mentioned earlier, and also the rubric-based kind of more specific metrics. Now, the truth is, you can build a rubric that trumps the generic metric. So, for example, consider groundedness. Like, okay, so groundedness as a generic metric, as I said earlier, it's like, here's the documents it retrieved, is everything it said based on these documents. That's a sort of generic way to look at it. In my bank rubric somewhere, it says very specifically, it's like, if somebody is making a fee dispute, you must first go look this up in the policy document set and nowhere else. And so there's a different kind of a subset of groundedness that applies to there, that is more specific to what this agent needs to be doing. And so you could say that supersedes the just generic groundedness evaluation. But today, you can use both. There's not a huge harm in it. Except, there's a little bit of a cost to it, right? Because again, you are engaging a second large language model to be the judge. And you're consuming tokens when you do that.
Yeah. Does this also does it, like, maybe it's more at the general level? Is there some way of making sure that an agent stays in the right amount of tokens it can use? Is there some kind of way to manage that as part of this whole process?
Well, that's not generally part of the rubric-based eval system. Now, you could do that separately. I mean, there are various ways, at least in the Microsoft world, you can do that with Foundry Control Plane and Azure Cost Management. There are various ways that you can set alerts and stops and things like that if it goes over. But in general, the rubric-based eval is more about the outcome that the agent is producing versus the tokens or whatever that it's using on the way.
So the agent is this kind of built with the business person in mind of creating these, or is this more of a developer kind of thing?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, the good thing about a rubric is exactly that it's human readable and human writable. You can write these things as kind of exit criteria for what you want your agent to do and how you want it to succeed. And there was who was I just talking to the other day? I think it was a government agency, and they were like, "Oh, this looks like our SOPs, their standard operating procedures. Everything in the government has an acronym." And I'm like, "Yeah, it kind of is. It's like SOPs for agents, I guess. It probably needs to be modified a little bit. I mean, I don't know what their SOPs are, but anyway, so to some degree, yes. I mean, this is the kind of thing that can be done by a business user. On the other hand, though, and you kind of saw it when I showed the runs. I had a lot of fails, a lot of red fails on there, and there was a little percentage or a decimal next to it. There is an art to it a little bit, which is choosing the threshold.
That's what it's asking. Just perfect. Yes,
that's where we're going, right? So, these are not deterministic systems, and they're going to fail. They're going to fail in ways that are maybe unexpected some percentage of the time. It's unlikely that you're going to hit 100% on. Almost definitely, you're not going to hit 100% on all the rubrics. And even hitting 100% on a single rubric is somewhat rare. I mean, you can hit it in the high 90s and that kind of thing. You need to decide what is your tolerance for failure? What is your tolerance for mistakes? And it's different on a per rubric basis. For example, like in this bank scenario, maybe some of the compliance ones, like the Fair Treatment Act or whatever it's called, that's a 0. Like there's no tolerance for mistakes there. Like it cannot make decisions based on race or whatever, that's absolutely prohibited by law. And there are ways that you can mitigate that. Like, for example, you can make a maker, checker, pair, right? Rather than having one agent, you can have two agents. The first one that forms a response or, starts to take the action. The second one checks it. And they argue with each other until they agree on a course of action. Anyway, so yeah, you have to decide the relative weights, and you might have noticed when I showed those rubrics, there are weights there too. So how important these rubrics are versus each other. And then you also have to pick, when you do the evaluation itself, what is my threshold? What do I consider acceptable that I can bring this thing to production?
It sounds to me like the way that agents have been evaluated up until this point has been so high level that there's no wonder why things are going on that really you wouldn't think would be going on. But it feels like this is the time where, as this rubric kind of evaluation, people start to implement it and get used to it and really learn the ins and out. Do you expect that less catastrophic kind of stuff will be taking place?
I mean, I like to think that. Well, I mean, I did say I use CoWork to manage my calendar, and I know that the CoWork team here at Microsoft is and has been using rubric-based evaluation actually for a year. So they've been doing this, and they've been improving this product over and over. Now, yeah, it still makes mistakes, like the other day when it made me an email with no line feeds in it at all. So it still makes mistakes, but that's 1 out of 50 times that I used it on that day. I mean, I use it a lot. So my whole calendar, everything, especially because I am crossing time zones so often, it's actually quite challenging just from a cognitive load perspective for me to keep that in my head. And it's super handy for that stuff. And yes, once in a while it does make a mistake, but I'd say 98% of the time it works just fine.
All right, I'm going to finish up with just a couple of real short ones. You, like you just said, you go all over the world. You speak first of all, you do this. Your hands, it's rather obvious. Your hands deep into this stuff. You talk about this stuff. You fly around the world to talk to people and customers. And what is the thing that you feel people still don't get about, particularly what's going on with the agentic stuff?
Well, I mean, I kind of alluded to it earlier that the goal is for a lot of these agents to do things autonomously. And I think that everybody thinks that everybody else has got it working that way. And nobody really does yet. I mean, in reality, we're not quite there yet where you can literally just run a thing autonomously. Now, in my travels, I've seen some stuff that surprised the heck out of me. I mean, I visited 2 different electrical grid operators, one in Australia, one in Germany, and both of them have built these agents. Now, the agents are not actually taking action on the electrical grid yet, so they're not there yet. But what they are doing, and now what I think I learned is, you'll have like 4 grid operators, and they will have like 1 million alerts a day, literally 1 million alerts a day, a vast number of alerts that this transformer is over temperature or whatever it might be, or like these things are getting out of phase, or all these different alerts that they get. And only a small proportion of these alerts are really actionable. Like they really need to take action on this. Now, this transformer is going to melt down, like you better go take care of that or shut down power to it right this second. So both of these grid operators now have agents in place that are watching all of these alerts and bringing up the super major ones through the controllers and saying, hey, like this one, like you really need to look at this one. This one's a problem. Wow. And, this in the space of like 2 months that I was in Australia, then I was in Germany, and I saw this in 2 different places developed independently. Now, maybe at some point, the agent itself might actually be able to take some limited form of action. And in Azure, we have a similar system, the Azure SRE system, which this is also an agent, and it's similar. Like again, in Azure, there's all kinds of alerts. This virtual machine is dying, or there's some degradation over here, or whatever it might be. And now it can take a very limited form of action. Many of our services are underlied by virtual machines that are spun up in Azure. And one of the things that this agent can do under some circumstances is reboot a virtual machine. If the virtual machine is just stopped dead, it's like hung, then it can reboot it. That's a kind of a low risk activity. If it's already hung, it's like, worst that happens is it doesn't come back online again. Best that happens is it's fixed the issue and nobody had to wake up in the middle of the night with their pager beeping. So, but my meta point is that we're starting to see critical infrastructure and agents for critical infrastructure, but nobody anywhere that I know of anyway has what I would call a fully autonomous agent yet.
Wow. 2 years from now, do you think that'll be different?
I think it might be. I think you'll start to see more and more, but it will be incremental. Mm-hmm. And now one of the things that you will see, I think, over the next couple of years, and this is a discussion I was just having with one of our customers prior to this podcast, agentic commerce is going to be a thing. There's going to come a time when, let's say that, like my car battery, the little battery in my key died the other day. It was a CR2032 battery, one of those little watch batteries. And I, went to Amazon or whatever, and I ordered one up. But, there will come a time I'll pull out my phone and I'll be like, buy me a CR2032 battery, and it'll do it. And I don't care where it comes from. I don't care if it comes from Amazon or Target or Walmart or whatever. I don't really care what the brand is, if it's Duracell or Energizer or whatever brand. I just need my car thing to work. And that's going to be a thing now. This is coming.
It doesn't matter what the price, or do your agent already knows, hey, this guy's pretty cheap. Go for it.
Yeah, go for the battery. There will surely, and this will be subject to conditioning also, right? So like you'll start using this agent, and there will be some circumstances where you don't care, where you're just like this. Like, I mean, I don't care as long as the price is right. I'll be like, find me whatever the lowest price one is, get me like a little pack. I don't need 15 million, CR2032 batteries here. Versus like when I'm buying socks, and I'll be like, I almost always use Under Armour socks, and I'll be like, no, specifically buy me men's Under Armour socks, not random brand. Whatever. I'm not, not a Hanes man when it comes to my socks. And no offense to Hanes, but
sorry, Hanes. I know we were talking sponsorship, but no, I'm just kidding. All right, one final question. When you talk about commerce and more agentic shopping and things like that, more daily activities are going to go agentic, which means I was talking to somebody about all the additional horsepower is needed when things that we kind of do with our head. I think he said our brain takes about 20 watts of energy to do certain things, but if you move it all this stuff to agents, that 20 watts turns into like 60,000. Are you, a company like Microsoft, are you guys thinking about what's going to happen, or how can we plan to make all the things that we talked about come true without taking too much of the power up?
Yeah, and I would note that I actually have a higher wattage brain than most. I shoot all of my hair off. But of course, I mean, we have a whole program for sustainability. As we put these data centers up, or in our existing data centers, we're looking to be power independent or power neutral and those kinds of things. But I think a subtle piece of this that is maybe under heralded is, I mean, we have a program here called Foundry Local, and we've come up with these models called the Phi series of models. Well, it's PHI, like the Greek letter, which I think is really pronounced as phi, but for
It
some
is.
reason,
I always thought it was 5 for some reason. Yeah.
Anyway, however you pronounce it, this is a model that can run locally on a device, and Foundry Local is a harness that runs locally on a laptop or on a phone. I actually made an Android app with it, which is kind of fun. And so I think part of this will be achieved by pushing some of that processing to the edge. This has always been, this pendulum in computer science has been like this, I mean, since like the 60s, I think, where it kind of goes from the big mainframe to the mini computers on the desktop, and then we get to the web and it swings back the other way. Now it's all server side. And then we start doing heavier and heavier JavaScript, swings back to the client. And now we've swung back to the server side again with large language models and things like that. But these small language models, our own Phi, Quen, and there are some others like that, Mistral from Mistral, they're becoming increasingly capable. I would not call them generally capable just yet. I mean, anybody who's actually tried one of these models and tried to do something real with them will find that they can do some funky stuff, and they're not great yet, but they're getting better and better and faster. Meanwhile, the edge hardware is getting better. Certainly, as many of you probably know, like the iPhone has a dedicated machine learning coprocessor on it. Many Android phones do too. Now, increasingly, laptops have an NPU on it, a neural processing unit. So as the edge hardware becomes more and more capable, we'll start to push more of that compute away from the giant server farms and towards the edge, or some hybrid of the two. And that's part of the solution also.
Yeah, I was talking about that to somebody not too long ago. When all of the compute is so limited geographically, it's just gonna suck all the stuff out of there. But if you could spread it out and have it so it's not one big gulp, but several small gulps distributed around, that seems to be an answer to some of this. I don't know if it's probably more. It's going to take more than one solution to keep everything going the way we need it to. But
you know what? Watch for innovation in this space coming out of Africa. And I say this because, I mean, think about, so I was in Nairobi last year. I spent some time in Nairobi, and that was pretty interesting. And, there's not a lot of like African data centers. And also people in Africa tend not to have enough money to pay for these things. And so a lot of people were like, hey, how do I make an Azure account? I don't have a credit card. You kind of need a credit card to make an Azure account. Fair point. But, out of Kenya came M-Pesa, and everything, you can pay for everything in Kenya with M-Pesa, even like tolls on the highway with M-Pesa. It was like the original, the OG Apple Pay from like 10 years earlier than Apple did anything like that.
Wow.
And it's universal there. So, I anticipate that as these models get better and better that are, edge-based models, that you'll actually see folks in Africa squeezing every last bit of goodness out of them.
Wow. And you can't ignore the relationships that China seems to be building with Africa.
Sure.
So that seems like they're going to have some,
interesting coming out of China too. I mean, I said the Quen models, right, coming out of China. I mean, can't ignore that too, of course.
All right, Marco, this has been absolutely great, man. Where can people go to learn more about the stuff you're working on and the stuff you're fascinated on? Because your fascinations lead to really interesting conversations. So tell us where we can go.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I will say that Microsoft is doing a thing that Microsoft doesn't usually do, which is we are doing these AI tours all over the world. And you'll find me at some of them, usually like Utrecht, I think I'll be at, and Sydney I was in. So these AI tours, we go all over the world, and we had, I think, 72 of them last fiscal year.
Wow.
And we kind of talk about the latest technology like this and show it live, and we have workshops, and so you can kind of sit down with us. So, look at our AI tour site, and you can find that where you can kind of really work with this stuff live. Online, certainly the documentation itself is all at learn.microsoft.com, which, by the way, we have retrofitted learn.microsoft.com, much of it anyway, to be better for coding agents. At least in my own division, we have found that coding agents now make up 80% of the accesses to our own documentation. So only 20% of it is reading the docs now. 80% is agents reading the docs.
Wow.
And so we have made it more agent amenable, less beating around the bush, a little bit more to the point and that kind of thing. So the agent just gets right to it. Fascinating thing. So learn.microsoft.com, and the Foundry tools, you'll find them at ai.azure.com.
Is there an Atlanta stop that you know about, or I'll just go and check it out and see if there's an Atlanta stop?
An Atlanta stop. I don't know the exact date of it, but yes, there will certainly be a stop in Atlanta.
And if you're going to be here, man, you got to let me know.
I will absolutely do it.
All right, Marco, thanks again. I know you got things to do, getting ready for a big trip and all that, but we appreciate you spending actually a little bit more than a few good minutes. But every one of those minutes were definitely well worth it. So thanks again, and thanks to everybody checking this out today. I will see you on Thursday with Last Call. Until then, have a good one.